Hey guys, it's Divest. Today I wanted to talk about Battlefield 6. So despite my harsh criticism of the Battlefield fandom, I was actually looking forward to playing Battlefield 6. I can't blame a whore like DICE for giving their audience what they want, even if what they want is shit. But I had the naive assumption that Battlefield 6 would provide an opportunity to replicate the shared experience I had in middle and high school playing Battlefield multiplayer with my friends. But it fell apart because all of my friends were too irritated by how shit the Battlefield multiplayer is to make it our regular communal game. So out of all my friends, I actually stuck with Battlefield 6 the longest, which was like 2 days, even though I put it under the most scrutiny. Beyond the same mediocre multiplayer experience that has been available for half of my life, I also played through the campaign, and it was awful in ways I didn't even expect. So spoiler alert for the single-player story in Battlefield 6 and the original COD Modern Warfare 2. When I went to Stockholm and DICE showed the game to me, I thought they were trying to make a social commentary with the Coalition and Pax Armada. That Western institutions like NATO were being undermined from within by corruption and their inability to address internal disputes. And up until the end of the campaign, that was what it felt like they were building up to. Anyways, the campaign started with Georgia evicting NATO as part of a treaty they signed with the coalition, and then the second mission is about Pax Armada invading Gibraltar and the Americans supporting the British to retain control of it. Then Egypt is in the middle of a civil war, with a NATO-backed faction of the army fighting against a coalition-backed government. So I thought that they were building up towards New York City being their attempt to cripple NATO preceding an invasion. But then, it got incredibly stupid. In the last 5 minutes of the story, the Black Lady CIA director orders the main character's squad of Marines to kill the leader of Pax Armada, a British guy who resents America because his men were killed by the Iranians and he was tortured during the events of Battlefield 3. The CIA lady orders the protagonist, which is a squad of Marine raiders, into a bunker to kill and verify the British guy, which they point out is unnecessary if they're just going to bomb the bunker and then do it anyway. Then the Brit tells them that Pax Armada is actually run by the CIA. The Black Lady orders the bunker to be bombed to kill all of them, while the British guy commits suicide by pulling a knife while surrounded by people aiming at him. Then the entire thing gets wrapped up in a cutscene. It's like the old Modern Warfare 2 with the Task Force 141 remnants chasing after Shepard, except it's not epic and the woman has no charisma. In Battlefield 6, I need to Google this woman's name, even though I just played the game. Last time I played the Modern Warfare 2 campaign, Obama was serving his first term, but I still remember the details. Additionally, there is no tension in the scenes at all. The Battlefield protagonists say she's incompetent, and the climax plays off like a game of cat and mouse, with the protagonists predicting her every move, mocking and humiliating her. It culminates in the CIA lady admitting they created Pax Armada to keep America unified against a common enemy and retain their global dominance, which is monumentally stupid and ignores the existence of the coalition, which directly challenges NATO and draws countries into an anti-American coalition. It also doesn't explain why she tried to kill the protagonist. The social engineering plot also doesn't make sense from an objective perspective because they are taking disparate anti-American groups and unifying them so they function more effectively. It would be like if Iran and the Taliban were brought together by the CIA to attack America instead of fighting each other. Here's what I would do at minimum to fix the ending for Battlefield 6. Now, I actually think the British guy is the strongest character in the game narratively. He's a dollar store knockoff of Big Boss from Metal Gear. Actually, that's insulting to Metal Gear. He's a dollar store knockoff of Kevin Spacey in Advanced Warfare. So let's say he threw his lot in with the coalition because he feels like he was exploited and then disposed of by the United States. Instead of making him a violent sadist, make him a schemer who's been hired by the coalition to outsmart NATO while Pax Armada is outgunned, and make an emotional connection between him and the guy who looks like Blackbeard from Rainbow Six Siege. Instead of him trying to get revenge, have the British guy tell the Marines they're fighting for the wrong side and they're going to end up like him when the CIA no longer find them useful. Then make Blackbeard's death the result of an intelligence failure by the CIA or political snafu to give the rest of the characters a reason to resent American institutions. Maybe even have them thinking the CIA murdered him because he knew about the British guy. Instead of the big dumb plot twist, have the raiders defect to the coalition because they identify with their enemy's ideology. Then, to get revenge on the CIA director for her role in Blackbeard's death, they break into his house, coerce a false confession out of her with the threat of torture or murder, kill some American soldiers, and execute her. Then you could justify how ugly the cutscenes are by reflecting how ugly the characters have become. Basically, just make their position much more morally dubious and stay consistent with the story established throughout the rest of the campaign. Killing Americans is important here, because in one cutscene they show a team of Pax Armada soldiers trying to rescue the CIA lady before the Marines ambush them. But that contradicts the premise that Pax Armada went rogue after it was initially created by the CIA. My alternative story would have created a single coherent narrative about internal divisions and politics by showing their destructive nature on the individual level up to an international level with the war between NATO and the coalition. It also has a scary real-world precedent because we have had republics back since Rome who succumbed to tyranny because their soldiers didn't like them. Instead, we got a lame 9/11 truther plot. You could have other events in the game building up to that, validating the British guy. In New York, you could have the president act self-absorbed and irreverent about the deaths of the people trying to protect him. Then, in the final missions, you could do stuff like subverting expectations with the dam's destruction. First off, it could flood civilians downriver, which would definitely happen in real life. Then, have it be pointless, because Pax Armada has generators on their base as backup. Then when you're at the base, it turns out the threat of Pax Armada WMDs didn't really exist. Like the missiles were actually untipped anti-air and missile weapons. But the CIA refuses to accept the truth so much, they decide to order the base to be carpet-bombed with their own men caught in the crossfire in order to ensure their destruction. At that point, you could have the other Marines who sacrifice themselves to stop the missiles die. Then leave the protagonist's squad doomed, calling out over the radio for help until the British Pax Armada commander rescues them like he was unable to for his own men. Then have the president on the news defending their actions by lying after Pax reveals their failure publicly online. Those are all ways you could modify events that happen in the game. Meeting the president's speech on television, the bombing of the dam, the assault on the Pax Armada missile base, and the deaths of the other Marines to stop the missiles in a way that could serve this story. The simple act of making the protagonist defect would make the story much more impactful and cerebral, and make the entire story follow a single, coherent theme, rather than coming to a screeching halt like a car crash at the last 5 minutes. Most importantly, it would be a battlefield game with a story that wasn't an inferior IKEA copy of an American masterpiece like Call of Duty. It would have its own story, where we're forced to think for ourselves about what we're being told. It would also fit the framed narrative better, instead of having an awkward plot twist dumped on you. You're instead getting to recontextualize the entire game story as a prosecutor presenting his case to the jury. In this case, the player. Then we have to decide if she is guilty, when he has already decided for himself. Anyways, that's all I want to say for now, while this is fresh in my mind. So until next time, this has been Divest.